Chapter 42:59. Huan took a glance and was sure that it was just a random game. She then looked at Chin Mo, who was sitting next to her in a suit and playing the game seriously. Huan took another look at him and didn't say anything. And this one glance seemed to have chased away all the quarrels and unhappiness from yesterday. It was as if they had disappeared. Chin Mo was tall and it was uncomfortable to sit in the small seat, so he got up and asked Huan to come over. In her heart, Huan felt that she was a little weak, but for the sake of Huan's happiness, she still sat down to accompany her. However, she was really not good at these things. In less than 5 minutes she died with Huan. When the words, "Game over," lit up, little Huan still couldn't accept it. She rubbed her eyes and slowly turned to look at Huan. "Mommy, you are so lousy." Chin Mo even chuckled, which infuriated Huan. She glanced at him and snorted. "I'm not as ignorant and incompetent as your daddy." Chin Mo wasn't angry, but his eyes were a little bright. Ignorant and incompetent. That's a new word. It's the first time someone said that to me. Then he picked up Huan. "Daddy will hold the doll for you." He was tall and Huan was only a few years old, so she was like a little doll in his arms. Huan was happy when she heard that. She clapped her hands. "I wanted Daddy to hold it just now, but Daddy refused." Chin Mo looked at Huan. "Mommy is a girl too. She likes this too." "I don't like it," Huan said stiffly. Chin Mo gave her a mocking look. When she was young, she especially liked one of his collectible toys and wouldn't leave his room. When she was 8, they slept together. Now that he was looking at her like this, Huan understood and glared at him angrily. Chin Mo just smiled. He went to exchange for 100 yuan and looked around the claw machine before starting to hold the dolls. Huan knew that it was very difficult to get these dolls. After all, they were here to earn money, not to do charity and make children happy. However, Chin Mo managed to get 4 or 5 dolls in a row, which made her look at him in a different light. "Take this." As she thought about it, Chin Mo threw a few dolls to her and focused on holding them. Hugging the doll, Huan snapped out of her daze after a moment. Looking at his calm profile, his expression serious and his hand still holding the doll, he looked like the most ordinary father in the world. He didn't look like the CEO of King Entertainment at all. She was a little lost in thought, and at this time, Chin Mo threw her a doll. His eyes inadvertently swept past her, and there seemed to be a hint of a smile. Huan's face heated up, but she didn't know why. She lowered her eyes and didn't dare to look at him openly. But after a while, he threw it at her again, this time several times. Little Huan clapped her hands. "Daddy is the best." Chin Mo looked at Huan. "Mommy thinks I'm the best too." Huan glared at him. Chin Mo took the opportunity to chuckle again. There was an inexplicable meaning in it. Later, he caught a few more. Huan couldn't hold them all in her arms. Coincidentally, there was a group of envious children around. Hence, with Huan's consent, Huan distributed the toys, keeping one for herself and Huan each. Chin Mo used up the 100 yuan in his hand and didn't exchange anymore. It was time for lunch. Chapter 42:60. Chin Mo used up the 100 yuan in his hand and didn't exchange anymore. It was time to eat. This was a comprehensive shopping mall. After looking around, they went to the 3rd floor to find something to eat. Sea City was a prosperous place with a developed economy, so they had to line up for half a day just to eat. Because Huan had picked a themed restaurant and insisted on eating, they had to line up. Chin Mo was carrying the child, so Huan went to line up. Chin Mo sat there and looked at her. For the first time, He felt that his relationship with Yi-Hwan had the smell of fireworks. Moreover, this feeling happened after their divorce. Chi-Nemo thought 1,000 times in his heart that divorce was really good. He waited like a boss. Yi-Hwan took a number and sat down. She said in a low voice, "We still have to wait for about half an hour." Chi-Nemo was a little proud at first, but when he saw the faint exhaustion on Yi-Hwan's face, he couldn't bear it anymore. He said in a low voice, "Lean on me if you're tired." Yi-Hwan was actually used to this kind of tiredness from work, but it didn't include being eaten by a Qin beast for half a night. She was a little tired now and wanted to lean on him. So she didn't refuse. She gently leaned on his shoulder and closed her eyes. When she leaned on his shoulder, Chi-Nemo felt an indescribable softness in his heart. He turned his head and looked at the girl on his shoulder. She still had short hair and was still thin. She was good-looking, but she was still a little bland. But she had been like this all these years, and he didn't know why he was so persistent. It seemed that his taste was like Yi-Hwan's. She looked good in whatever way she was. However, Chi-Nemo always hoped that one day, Yi-Hwan would change for him. One day, when she appeared in front of him with straight black hair and a skirt, she would really love him then. Although she was not bad like this, men always had their own imagination. Chi-Nemo stared at her, his eyes filled with affection. He couldn't help but caress her face gently. Yi-Hwan was a light sleeper and woke up immediately. "Is it our turn?" Chi-Nemo shook his head. "No, you should sleep a little longer." However, Yi-Hwan had already woken up from her light sleep and did not want to sleep anymore. Another reason was that there were too many people around, and she was a little embarrassed. She didn't know how many women were envious of Chi-Nemo's gaze when she was asleep, and how many husbands and wives could still have such a gaze after having children. Under the envious gazes of the women, Yi-Hwan sat for about 10 minutes until they finally had their meal. When they went inside, Yi-Hwan scanned the QR code and paid, just like a normal couple. Yi-Hwan was the happiest. She sat beside her mother and chattered about what they had played today. Later, Yi-Hwan glanced at Chi-Nemo in surprise. He looked very mysterious. He held the aperitif in one hand and swirled it gently. Yi-Hwan had to admit that some men were born to be noble. Even in such a commoner's restaurant, Chi-Nemo's posture was as elegant as if he was eating a high-class French meal. What was even more amazing was that he had worn Yi-Hwan for the whole day. Now that he had taken off his jacket, the shirt inside was neat and tidy, as if it had been ironed. Of course, there were already many women sneaking glances at him. Yi-Hwan only realized it after a while. Chapter 42-61. Chi-Nemo seemed to have sensed something. He swirled the glass and took a sip. Yi-Hwan was also drinking water, but she choked after just one sip. It wasn't water at all, it was brandy. Yi-Hwan tried her best to hold it in because it was too rude in the restaurant. She held it in for a long time until tears came out. Chi-Nemo pushed a small plate of desserts over. "Eat this to suppress it." She didn't have time to be calculative. She immediately took small bites and stopped eating after eating a few pieces. Chi-Nemo smiled. "Are you afraid of getting fat? It's okay for you to be so thin." Yi-Hwan frowned. "It's not what you think. I don't like sweet food." He was still smiling. "Then you like salty food?" "I don't know." Yi-Hwan really didn't notice what he meant at first. When she came back to her senses, she glared at him. Chi-Nemo didn't avoid her gaze, and his clear eyes told her that he meant what she thought. Yi-Hwan felt that he had no integrity. She wanted to ignore him, but her face turned red. She heard another chuckle. It was obvious that this guy was too proud of himself. Yi-Hwan was so angry that she kicked him under the table. But when she wanted to pull her foot back, her foot was caught by a hand. Then, her shoe was taken off, and her foot was touched. Huan's eyes were filled with tears. She never thought that Qin Mo would do such a thing. She struggled, but she couldn't break free. Instead, he tickled her foot a few times, looking very amused. Qin Mo saw that she was really angry, so he let her go. And Huan's face was completely red. Huan buried her head to eat her desserts. How would she know about the play between her parents? At this moment, the waiter came over to serve the dishes. They were all cute food that children liked. The adults only had plain steak, but the taste was not bad. Qin Mo was especially considerate. He pushed the plate of beef over to Huan and exchanged it with her. He smiled lightly. "Eat this." Huan had been tricked by him several times and muttered, "One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions." Qin Mo asked playfully, "Then which type do you want me to be?" "Shameless." Huan lowered her head to eat. She was really hungry. Filming was hard, and she was the director. She had played with them for a long time. It was already past 8 o'clock. She was skinny, but she could eat a lot. She finished the steak in no time. Qin Mo was speechless. "Where did you eat? There's no meat anywhere." Huan snorted. "If you're not satisfied, you can find someone else. Don't force yourself." Qin Mo looked at her, smiled, and gave her half of his portion. Huan refused. "Let's order another portion." He still gave it to her and ordered another for himself. Huan insisted, "I won't eat what you've eaten." Qin Mo looked at her for a long time and smiled. "I thought we were already helping each other." "So it's not the case." He said meaningfully, "You don't even like this." "If I really let you, Qin Mo." Huan glared at him. "Are you going to let me eat?" His gaze was deep. "You're the one who said that I'm ignorant and incompetent." So he wanted to show her that he was ignorant and incompetent. Huan was speechless. Wasn't he being too petty? After the meal, Huan was also tired. Qin Mo paid the bill and brought them back to the hotel. Unexpectedly, he threw Huan to Kong Chiao. "I'll give you a chance to take care of the baby." Kong Chiao took the soft and fragrant bun. She felt helpless and amused. Obviously, she wanted to spend time with the two of them. Chapter 42-62. Huan felt that it was inappropriate. Firstly, she didn't want to trouble Kong Chiao. Secondly, Kong Chiao had never been a father before. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to take good care of Huan. She wanted to say something, but Qin Mo had already dragged her back to his room. As soon as the bedroom door was closed, she was pressed against the door and kissed by Qin Mo. She was a little angry and desperately turned her head away. "Qin Mo, don't you have any shame? What will Kong Chiao think if you do this?" Qin Mo was still pressing against her. He said with a smile, "What do you think he will think when we're a man and a woman alone?" Huan glared at him. "I'm very tired tonight. I want it." He went straight to the point. Huan was speechless. Her face was burning. "You just had it last night." Qin Mo stretched out his fingers and stroked her face gently. His voice was low and husky. "Last night was last night's share. Today's isn't over yet." Huan bit her lip. "We're not husband and wife. We don't have this obligation. But I'm your boyfriend now, right?" His voice was hoarse. "Shouldn't we do it once?" As he spoke, he had already carried her onto the bed regardless of her wishes. Last night, they had done it on the sofa and in the bathroom, so it wasn't very satisfying. But tonight, just by pressing her down like this, it made one's hair stand on end. That night, Chin Mo also did whatever he wanted. Huan cried in the end. He kissed her tears and coaxed her, but he still couldn't bear to let go of her. Huan bit his shoulder and wrapped her arms around his neck. She felt very wronged. But he really couldn't bear to let go. He kissed her and said, "Bear with it a little longer." This time, he wouldn't be able to see her for about a week. In the past, he would have been used to enduring it for a long time. But now, how could he endure it? How many more 5 years could he wait? He didn't want to wait anymore. Just as Chin Mo was unceremoniously occupying the room, in Kong Chiao's room, an adult and a child were staring at each other. Huan sat on the sofa and counted her little fingers. "I want to take a bath at night. I want a pink bathtub with roses sprinkled on it. Also, you have to rub me. Don't use too much force. I want the bath to be fragrant." She then rubbed her little finger. "Also, the baby must drink milk and listen to stories before going to bed. It's best if there's music." Kong Chiao stared at her cute palm-sized face and asked suspiciously, "Don't tell me you are Wagyu. Listening to music, taking a bath, drinking red wine, milk, telling stories, what else could it be if it wasn't Wagyu's treatment?" But how could Huan understand the thoughts of adults? She innocently asked, "Uncle Kong Chiao, are you going to treat me to Wagyu?" Kong Chiao was speechless. "I really want to stew you." Huan stared at him, her eyes slowly filled with tears. Then, she burst into tears. "Uncle is too bad. I'm going to eat the baby." Kong Chiao was amused by Huan's crying, but he felt warm in his heart. He didn't know that children could be so cute. He picked up Huan and kissed her. She was fragrant and soft like a little bun. Huan forgot to cry. She touched Kong Chiao's face with her white and tender fingers and said softly, "Uncle, you are so good-looking." As a man, Kong Chiao was very happy, even though he was being praised by such a small child. He paused for a moment and then coughed lightly. Who is good-looking, Daddy or Uncle? Chapter 42-63. Little Huan tilted her head and thought about it carefully. Then she said, "Uncle is good-looking because Daddy has someone he likes." Kong Chiao laughed and then said seriously, "Uncle also has someone he likes." "Your Aunt Su Mo," the little friend Huan remembered. After thinking hard for a long time, he said, "Then I want Brother Nan to look the best." "Xiangnan. Yi Xiangnan." Kong Chiao laughed and then reached out to rub the little girl's head. "Yes, Xiangnan is very good-looking." Yi Xiangnan inherited the good points of his parents. In fact, all the children of the Yi family were beautiful. Bai Anan was also ridiculously beautiful. However, their story was something that would happen many years later. They were still young now. Chin Huan was a little tired after talking for so long. She covered her mouth and yawned. She looked at Kong Chiao and said, "It's time to take a bath." Kong Chiao was a little confused. Where was he going to find a pink bathtub, rose petals, and a milk bottle? However, Mr. Kong still had some connections. In order to satisfy little Princess Huan, he really went to find a bathtub, rose petals, and milk bottle. The popular superstar Kong Chiao, who was nearing her 40s, personally served Huan as if she was serving a princess. After she was done bathing, she went to dry herself and changed into a cute bathrobe. She let Huan hold the milk bottle in her arms and coaxed her to tell stories. When Huan fell asleep, Kong Chiao felt that she was more tired than working for a whole day. However, Chin Huan was really adorable and very healing. Just looking at his sleeping face was enough to make people unable to shift their gazes away. Kong Chiao hoped that his daughter in the future would be as cute as Huan. He smiled and leaned over to kiss her little face, just like a father. Kong Chiao went to take a bath and then lay on the bed. He pulled the little girl into his arms and enjoyed being a father in advance. Yes, little Yi Huan could even drool and talk in her sleep. Everything was very novel to Kong Chiao. At dawn, Su Mo called. Kong Chiao quietly got out of bed and went to the window to answer the call. Su Mo said softly, "I took Mom for a checkup yesterday. Everything is fine. Don't worry." Kong Chiao smiled, "Thank you, Mrs. Kong." Then he asked, "When are you going to find time to visit me?" "Chin Mo came to visit you, and he even left Yi Huan here to take care of me last night." Then, he sighed softly. This sigh was filled with an indescribable meaning. Su Mo blushed and said, "Mr. Kong, work hard. I'll wait for you to come back." Kong Chiao was very unhappy. "These few months, you let me be alone. If I put up with it for too long, it will break down." Kong Chiao. Su Mo bit his lip. "Don't say anything else. Waiting for you to come." His voice was soft, and then he hung up. Because Yi Huan had woken up. She was sitting on the bed in a little nightgown and staring straight at Kong Chiao. Seeing Kong Chiao come over, Yi Huan smiled and said, "Uncle Kong Chiao, do you like Yi Huan a lot?" Kong Chiao smiled and walked over to kiss her. "Of course, Yi Huan is very cute. Then Uncle should work hard and go home more often to be intimate with Auntie Su Mo. Then you will have little Yi Huan." After saying that, Yi Huan added, "That way, Mom can go home too." Kong Chiao smiled. "You already know how to play tricks at such a young age." As expected of Chin Mo's child. Unlike Yi Huan, he was not the least bit less scheming. Chapter 42-64. Kong Chiao dressed the little girl, brushed her teeth and washed her face according to her specifications. Although it was a little complicated, Kong Chiao thought it was very interesting. He and Su Mo had a daughter, and he would treat her like this. When he was done, he took Yi Huan to the dining room for breakfast. He didn't disturb the couple. However, when he arrived at the dining room, he unexpectedly met Yi Huan and Chin Mo. He knew Yi Huan's professionalism, but Chin Mo was used to being President Chin. How could he get up so early? In fact, Yi Huan couldn't get up at all after being tormented by him for the whole night. Instead, it was Chin Mo who dragged her up to have breakfast together and show off his power in front of Rongyu. It was a little ridiculous and childish, but he did it. Kong Chiao held Yi Huan's hand as they walked into the house. When Yi Huan saw her parents, she immediately ran up to them, hugged and kissed them. Kong Chiao, on the other hand, felt a little disappointed as he looked at his empty hands. Yi Huan sat next to Yi Huan, and Chin Mo went to get food for them. Yi Huan ate quietly as usual, and Yi Huan was as picky as before. Fortunately, her mother was there, and she wanted to behave better and be more obedient. So she drank a bottle of milk and 2 cute buba chicken buns, which were specially made by President Chin. After breakfast, Yi Huan was about to leave. She couldn't bear to leave. Yi Huan came all the way here. In fact, Yi Huan and Yi Huan didn't spend much time with each other. They were all satisfied with Chin's show. Yi Huan felt a little uncomfortable thinking about it. Sitting down, she raised her hand to look at her watch, and then said in a low voice, "Chin Mo, how are you going to go back later? There's a special car and plane." He looked at her. "I'll come again next week." Yi Huan looked at him for a long time, and then said in a low voice, "The crew has a day off next week. Let's take Yi Huan to the zoo. I don't think we've taken her out to play together." Chin Mo stared at her and smiled faintly. He said yes. His gaze was nostalgic, but Yi Huan was indeed about to set off. She hugged Yi Huan and kissed her. Her voice was hoarse. Yi Huan, you have to listen to Daddy. Come and see Mommy next week, okay? Yi Huan opened her big eyes wide and then looked at Kong Qiao's face. I still need Uncle Kong Qiao to coax me to sleep. Because Uncle Kong Qiao was even gentler than his father, he wouldn't hit the baby's butt. Kong Qiao looked calm on the surface, but he was cursing in his heart. How was he going to make a human being like this? He was also going to be visited. Qin Mo smiled. Men understood men very well, so he brought Auntie Lan with him next time. He booked another suite for Auntie Lan to take care of Yi Huan. Just like that, Qin Mo visited Yi Huan 4 times a month, and Yi Huan couldn't take it anymore. He protested to Qin Mo, but the latter didn't listen to him at all. He wasn't willing to let go of such benefits. The next month, she made a trip back to B City to attend an award ceremony. She didn't tell Qin Mo. As a director, she accepted this arrangement mainly to promote her new movie. Yi Huan was also a worldly person. She wouldn't be so noble as to think that she could make a lot of money without any promotion. She arrived in B City in the afternoon. The moment she stepped out of the airport, she turned on her phone and received a message from Qin Mo. He said that he wouldn't be going to see City this week because he had some work to do. Yi Huan didn't think much of it. He was the CEO of King Entertainment and had a lot of work to do. Chapter 4265. Yi Huan didn't want to reply, but she thought about it and said that she wanted to talk to Yi Huan first thing in the morning. After sending the message, she was a little stunned. In fact, she clearly knew that she and Qin Mo had started over from the beginning of their relationship. Although the way they got along was similar to how they used to be as an old married couple, there were still some differences. They had both given up on the sharpness and got along with each other in a way that made each other comfortable. Yi Huan knew that they were accommodating each other. He hadn't said anything about remarrying yet, so she wasn't in a hurry. Perhaps it was because they were at a different age. The old Qin Mo might have asked her to remarry. Yi Huan thought about it and smiled. She hailed a taxi and went back to her apartment. This was a top-notch smart house of about 200 square meters that she had personally bought. Even when she wasn't there would be hourly cleaners cleaning it. It was very clean, and most of Yi Huan's things were placed here. In her wardrobe, other than some daily clothes, there were also some evening gowns for emergencies. Most of them were basic black and conservative. Yi Huan had just gotten off the plane. After resting for about an hour, she got up to take a bath, blow-dried her hair, and put on makeup. Then, she picked out a black evening gown and changed into it. She drove her own car, a black supercar. When she arrived, she walked the red carpet with the crew. Fortunately, everyone was there, so she didn't have to stand in the cold wind for too long. Just as Kong Qiao was about to leave with her, there was a commotion behind them. The fans and reporters on both sides were calling a name. It was a name that Yi Huan would never forget, Ai Jia. The famous movie queen a few years ago. She was also Qin Mo's confidant. She was his woman abroad. Yi Huan turned her head slowly. She saw Ai Jia holding Qin Mo's hand as they walked the red carpet. He was dressed in a black suit, looking handsome. Ai Jia was dressed in black and white, looking elegant and elegant. She and Qin Mo were a perfect match. All of this stung Yi Huan's eyes. At that moment, the red carpet was like the dripping blood of the past. It hurt so much. That year, Ai Jia had a miscarriage. Qin Mo had accompanied her, but he had never explained anything. Yi Huan thought that after so many years, they would naturally separate. However, when she suddenly returned to B City, she realized that she was a little silly. He went to see City once a week, and she thought it was true love. It turned out that he was still in contact with AI Jia. Huan's fingers tightened. She closed her eyes and barely steadied herself. Kong Chao whispered, AI Jia has signed with King Entertainment. There will be a few shows to film. Huan raised her head and looked at Kong Chao with a slight smile. I know. Business is the most important thing to Qin Mo. She remembered that Qin Mo had always minded Rongyu, but she had never told him about it. In her heart, she minded AI Jia more, but Qin Mo never seemed to care about it. He didn't care how having another woman around him would affect him. Or perhaps, he didn't care about her anymore. Otherwise, why would he lie to her? He said he had business to attend to. Yes, AI Jia was his business. And AI Jia was Huan's heartache. A woman who used to have a child with her husband or her. She existed in their marriage, and now she had appeared again. Just as Huan was about to leave, Qin Mo noticed her. His dark eyes darkened. Why was Huan here? Chapter 42-66. Actually, Huan had only received the invitation 2 days ago. She didn't tell Qin Mo because she didn't want to do it with him anymore. But now it was obvious that she was thinking too much. He had someone to do it with. It was none other than AI Jia, whom she cared about the most. Huan's eyes welled up with tears, but she held them in. They were already divorced. If she couldn't handle this, she would lose her composure. Kong Chao sensed her emotions. He put his arm around her shoulders and said, let's go in first. Don't face it if you don't want to. You should be happy and not force yourself. Huan let out a long sigh and turned to look at Kong Chao. Then she smiled and said, I know. She turned around and was about to go in, but she met Qin Mo's eyes. Huan saw his arm being held by AI Jia. She smiled faintly, and, without turning her head, entered the hall with Concho. Qin Mo's eyes darkened. He was about to go forward when AI Jia said gently, Qin Mo, was that Huan? His eyes were calm as he nodded. Then she might have misunderstood. You go and explain it to her. AI Jia was still gentle. I don't have anything to do here. Qin Mo exhaled deeply and said, it's okay. I'll explain it to her later. He still took photos with AI Jia and accepted the interview. Qin Mo had signed Rongyu's new script. He was going to let AI Jia act in it, which would give AI Jia a lot of publicity. But Huan probably wouldn't agree to it as a director. He was going to hire a senior director. King Entertainment had signed a contract with AI Jia for 3 movies. Technically speaking, AI Jia wasn't a part of King Entertainment. But President Qin would follow up on all the big productions. Not everyone could have this kind of favor. Qin Mo knew that there were rumors about him and AI Jia in the company. Huan might have misunderstood, but it was true that there was nothing between them. He only treated AI Jia as an old friend. Perhaps he felt guilty as well, but he could never repay her. Perhaps he should tell Huan about it. Qin Mo walked into the venue with AI Jia. He glanced around but did not see Huan. Instead, he saw Rongyu. Rongyu was wearing a formal suit, looking gentle and clean. He had a purity that the current Qin Mo did not have. Qin Mo introduced AI Jia to him. AI Jia looked straight at Rongyu and suddenly found something interesting. She smiled and asked, you know Huan, right? Rongyu didn't answer directly. He just smiled faintly, a little aloof. At this moment, Qin Mo was probably going to look for Huan, so only AI Jia and Rongyu were left behind. Rongyu was still smiling faintly. Ai Jia held the cup in her hand and raised it slightly at Rong Yu. Mr. Rong, I admire you very much. I heard that director he also admires you very much. You two had a wonderful time when you were young, didn't you? Ms. Ai seems to know a lot. Rong Yu's faint smile was a little distant. But I don't know if President Qin told you this or if you found out through other channels. Ai Jia gently played with the cup in her hand and smiled. Actually, no matter how I found out, I can help you. We can help each other, don't you think? Rong Yu smiled faintly. I only hope that He Huan can be happy. Chapter 4267. Rong Yu smiled faintly. I just want He Huan to be happy. That's great. Ai Jia smiled and raised her glass. I hope you'll always think that way. With that, she walked away. Rong Yu's eyes darkened. Then, he gently sipped the wine in his glass. On the other side, Qin Mo found He Huan. She was talking to a few young directors. Qin Mo didn't call for her immediately. He just stood at the side with a glass of red wine in his hand and listened to her quietly. He Huan didn't notice him either. About 10 minutes later, Qin Mo walked over lazily and took the wine glass from He Huan's hand. You've had a few glasses tonight. Don't get drunk. His expression was gentle and kind. One look and it was obvious that they were in a relationship. The other young directors also knew Qin Mo and wanted to curry favor with him. But even though Qin Mo's expression was gentle, it was for He Huan. There was still a hint of alienation in his expression. So, the young directors all ran away in an instant. He Huan lowered her gaze and looked at the empty glass in her hand. She smiled faintly and turned her head. Does it have anything to do with President Qin? His dark eyes locked onto hers. Are you still angry? He Huan snatched the glass of red wine from his hand and said in a low voice, There's nothing to be angry about. It's not worth it for you. King Entertainment signed 3 films with Ai Jia. He frowned. It's not what you think. He Huan took a sip of the red wine and smiled lightly. Yes, it's not what I think. You just want to help Ai Jia. After all, she hasn't acted in the country for a few years and isn't that popular. But why did you let her act in Rong Yu's film? Do you think I'm stupid? And today, you walked the red carpet with her. Are you trying to increase her popularity? Or do you think the entertainment news isn't interesting enough? Qin Mo, you said you love me, but I really don't feel it. He looked at her. Is that what you think of me? He Huan sneered. I'm sorry, it's just a normal reaction from me, or a normal reaction from a woman. You should know how Wen Yuan and Yimu Bai fell out because of a female celebrity. Now I'm the same. Don't say it's because of work, because I'm tired of hearing this kind of talk. As she spoke, she turned to leave. She was truly angry. Qin Mo reached out and grabbed her. His voice was extremely hoarse. You really don't want to listen to my explanation. I don't want to hear it. She didn't look at him and was a little willful. Qin Mo suddenly said, He Huan, do you know that you've fallen in love with me now? She turned her head, stared at him, and said word by word, I like you, scum. If he didn't break free, she would kick him mercilessly. In the end, Qin Mo still let her escape. He didn't want to, but the official gala was about to start, and he didn't want to be too conspicuous. After they sat down, they sat in a row. He Huan sat in front, and Kong Chiao, Rong Yu, and the rest of the crew sat beside her. Qin Mo sat not far behind her, and Ai Jia sat beside him. Ai Jia probably noticed that he didn't look too good, so she said softly, Qin Mo, do you want me to explain? I think He Huan has misunderstood. No need. I'll settle the matter between me and her myself. Qin Mo's voice was a little faint, and it was obvious that he wasn't in a good mood. Ai Jia didn't say anything. Chapter 4268. Because of these reasons, both He Huan and Qin Mo felt a little uneasy at the party. When He Huan went on stage, she was a little distracted. She accidentally tripped and almost fell. Luckily, Rongyu held her up and said in a low voice, "Watch your feet carefully." He Huan forced a smile and thanked him. Rongyu just stared at her. And this scene, in Qin Mo's eyes, was extremely glaring. He hated it to the core. His fingers clenched into fists as he watched He Huan and the crew chatting and laughing on stage. Actually, she was facing a lot of people, but in Qin Mo's eyes, she was only smiling at Rongyu. Her smile was gorgeous. Damn it! She had never smiled at him like this before. How dare she smile at another man in front of him? Qin Mo wanted to rush up to the stage and pull her down. He didn't want her to smile at others or be seen by others. What was she wearing today? Her neckline was so exposed. Ai Jia glanced sideways and saw the unhappy expression on Qin Mo's face. She said faintly, "Qin Mo, you must love He Huan very much. This kind of love is rare." If Qin Lu was still alive, he would probably be the same. Her words pulled Qin Mo's attention back a little. His face was a little pale. Qin Lu was another child of the Qin family. He grew up without his parents, which was what made the Qin family special. Until one day, Qin Lu left forever for him. This was the pain in Qin Mo's heart. Even his parents didn't know the truth. They always thought that Qin Lu was still in some secret organization and couldn't be contacted. However, Qin Lu was no longer around. Even his only bloodline was no longer around. Ai Jia was pregnant with Qin Lu's child. The blood on Qin Mo's face disappeared inch by inch. His whole body was cold. Qin Mo, it's all in the past. Ai Jia put her hand on the back of his hand and said gently, "We have to start a new life." "You said that to me, didn't you?" Qin Mo was a little distracted, and did not notice the hand she placed on the back of his hand. His thoughts were all on that explosion, and it was Qin Lu who saved him, while Qin Lu himself was forever buried in the ruins, unable to return, unable to see his parents. His heart suddenly tightened. It was very painful, probably because he felt the pain of Qin Lu back then. At that moment, He Huan, who was on the stage, happened to see Qin Mo and Ai Jia holding hands. She lowered her eyes and stopped looking at them. She didn't know how she got back to her seat, but she knew she couldn't stay there any longer. Rongyu whispered, "Let's go out and get some fresh air." If it was in the past, He Huan would probably care about Qin Mo's feelings. After all, they should be together again. But now, she felt that maybe they only shared a body. Because they had a child together, they naturally rolled in the sheets. She was thinking too much. President Qin was single again. How could he not spend as much as he could? The first thing he did was to find Lao Qing. After all, he was free now. He Huan closed her eyes, feeling a little ironic. She and Rongyu walked out, but they didn't go anywhere. They just walked under the street lights. The night was a little cold. Rongyu took off his coat and put it on her. He Huan didn't refuse. She just tilted her head and smiled faintly. Chapter 4269. He Huan smiled bitterly. Rongyu's heart ached. He Huan's pain was because of Qin Mo. He said in a low voice, "He Huan, you have to be careful of Ai Jia. I think you're also in the entertainment circle, so you should know the situation there. Many people look glamorous on the surface, but they don't have much integrity. Huan looked down and said in a low voice, I know, but Rongyu, I really don't know how to continue with Qin Mo, is it because of AI Jia? Rongyu said in a low voice, according to my analysis, there's nothing between them now. If Qin Mo wants her, he doesn't have to continue with you. You're divorced, right? He doesn't need to please you. That's not pleasing me. Huan smiled bitterly, he's just pleasing himself. Besides, Rongyu, I also need a sense of security. Whether it's during our marriage or after our divorce, I can't ignore the relationship between him and AI Jia. Qin Mo knows it too, but he never explains it. After saying that, she didn't want to say more. She kicked a stone and was lost in thought. Rongyu would accompany her when she wanted to take a walk. Even if she didn't leave now, he would accompany her. He knew that this period of time was stolen. He just liked her very much. In fact, he knew that she had always liked Qin Mo. From the past, now, and in the future, it should be the same. Huan was just scared by Qin Mo and felt that he was safe. Kong Qiao's words reminded him of something that he didn't want to admit. When they were young, he and Huan would hang out sometimes. Sometimes, he would see her and Qin Mo together on the street. Qin Mo would hold Huan's school bag in his hand, and Huan would follow him. Qin Mo's expression was cool, and Huan would look impatient, but they could walk together for a long time. He thought that it was lucky that they didn't get together. Otherwise, it would be sad if Huan suddenly found out that she had always liked Qin Mo after a few years of marriage. If only they could still be friends now. Maybe he still felt a little unwilling. But as he said, he wanted her to be happy. Talk to him. Rongyu said, you can't alienate him because of someone else, right? Things have to be solved eventually. Escaping is never a problem. Huan glanced at Rongyu. Then, she put her hand on the railing and looked at the streetlights in the distance. She smiled faintly. I don't want to talk about it, and there's nothing to talk about. Rongyu, I admit that I had a little crush on you before, but our friendship only lasted for a cup of coffee. Even Qin Mo couldn't stand it, and AI Jia. Her voice was a little low. He accompanied AI Jia to have an abortion. I don't know if it was a spontaneous abortion or if he purposely had an abortion. In any case, he couldn't get over it. Maybe the way we got along was a little confusing. Now that AI Jia is back, I really didn't expect him to bring AI Jia back. But it's better than remarrying without knowing anything. If we fight again, we'll have to get a divorce. It's too much of a hassle. Maybe I'm old and I don't want to fight anymore. As she spoke, her eyes were a little misty. Then, she leaned her face against the cold railing and said in a low voice, Rongyu, do you know that some things can't be settled? If he can be with AI Jia, it either means that I'm not that important, or that AI Jia is very important. There are no other possibilities. Chapter 4270. After Huan said that, Rongyu realized that he couldn't comfort her. Because that was about it. He didn't know the story between Qin Mo and AI Jia, but there must be a story behind it. If there wasn't a story behind it, a married man wouldn't allow a woman to be by his side. He felt that it wasn't worth it. But Rongyu couldn't intervene in their affairs, so he could only comfort her. He sighed in his heart. He didn't know if giving up was right or wrong. The only thing he could be sure of was that Huan's heart was filled with Qin Mo and not him. Otherwise, she wouldn't be in so much pain. She was in pain, and he was by her side. Later, Rongyu went to buy a cup of milk tea for her. It could warm her up and she could drink it. They stood there and were seen by Qin Mo. He walked over quietly. Rong Yu saw him and smiled. President Qin. He Huan tilted her head and saw Qin Mo standing beside her. His hands were in his pockets, and his body was covered with lights and neon lights. He looked. Qin Mo took the jacket off her shoulders and returned it to Rong Yu. Thanks. Rong Yu only smiled and tactfully left. Qin Mo put his jacket on He Huan's shoulders. Why are you standing here? Have you been out for a long time? He Huan avoided him and walked towards the parking lot. She was still holding the cup of milk tea in her hand. She couldn't bear to put it down because of the warmth Rong Yu gave her. Qin Mo grabbed her hand. Stop fooling around. There's nothing between us. He Huan paused and tilted her head. Actually, it doesn't matter what happened between you and her. Qin Mo, you always ask too much of me and indulge yourself too much. I don't think we're on the same wavelength. She was about to leave after saying that. But how could he let her go? Qin Mo didn't let go of her hand. He Huan was a little angry and threw the milk tea at his face. The milk tea broke and the milk tea splashed on his face. It was an ugly scene. Qin Mo frowned and wiped his face with his hand. Have you calmed down? He Huan was stunned for a moment, then he smiled bitterly. Qin Mo, do you think I'll calm down after you coax me? Or do you think I can get along with Ai Jia peacefully? Let me tell you, I don't have such a big belly, and I can't always bump into you with other women. There's nothing going on between us. After cleaning himself up, Qin Mo couldn't bear to see himself in such a sorry state. However, she refused to cooperate and insisted on fighting with him, so he chose to carry He Huan. He Huan was shocked. She reached out and hit him on the shoulder. What are you doing? Qin Mo, you bastard. Let go of me. He didn't let go. Not only did he not let go, but he also slapped her but hard. He Huan, you'd better be good, or I'll use the whip. She screamed in anger, her limbs flailing about, but there was nothing she could do because he always had a way to restrain her. In the end, He Huan had no other choice. She opened her mouth and bit Qin Mo's neck. She didn't show any mercy because she wanted him to let go. Qin Mo's body froze for a moment, then he stopped. He looked down and stared at her. There was something like warmth in his eyes. He let her bite him and said softly and gently, "Are you really so cruel to bite me to death, huh?" He Huan glared at him angrily and didn't let go until she tasted blood in her mouth. Chapter 42-71. He Huan didn't say anything and just turned her head away awkwardly. Qin Mo put her in his car. She didn't struggle because she knew it was useless. They had grown up together and had been married for several years. She couldn't be clearer about it. Just like that, the two of them were quiet. After a long time, Qin Mo said softly, "Ai Jia and I aren't in that kind of relationship. That child isn't mine either." He Huan was quiet. After a while, she suddenly said, "If she told me that it was yours, would you believe her?" Qin Mo stared at her and didn't say anything for a long time. He Huan smiled softly, but it was a bitter smile. After a long time, she said softly, "You don't believe me, do you? You don't believe that Ai Jia told you that it's mine, right?" Qin Mo didn't say anything. Tacit agreement was sometimes an admission. He Huan was already exhausted, but now she was angry again. She reached out to open the car door, but it was locked by him. Qin Mo wasn't in a hurry and let her do whatever she wanted. He picked up a tissue to clean the wound on his neck and frowned. "He Huan, are you a puppy? You bit me so hard." He Huan kicked the car door angrily. "Open the door." Chin-mo, you bastard. Chin-mo threw the tissue away and looked at her. Since you smashed my car, I changed it to a shockproof, shatterproof, and anti-riot car. It's a little expensive, but it's very effective in controlling a woman's emotions. That's why it's undamaged even after you went crazy for a night. Hee-hwan glared at him. He was still in a good mood. He looked at her for a while and then said softly, "Let's talk at home." As he drove, Hee-hwan lay on the seat and bit her fist. In fact, she was very beautiful tonight. Although her gown was simple black, and although she had only put on light makeup, she was skinny and beautiful. Her skinny body made people want to hug her, and her skin was honey-colored. It was probably because she stayed outdoors for a long time. In short, everything about her made people's hearts beat. Chin-mo was a little absent-minded while driving. When he stopped at a red light, he would turn his head to look at Hee-hwan. Hee-hwan ignored him and looked out of the window. At this moment, the jacket on her body slipped down. She did not notice it, nor did he remind her. He just quietly watched her thin shoulders glisten in the dark, and her face became softer because of the light. Chin-mo endured it all the way to their apartment, so naturally, he didn't need to endure it anymore. As soon as the car stopped, he unbuckled his seatbelt, leaned over to hold the back of her head, and gently kissed her. Startled, Hee-hwan turned around and stared at him blankly. Chin-mo's voice was a little hoarse. "Don't look at me like that. I feel like I'm being raped." Hee-hwan came back to his senses and struggled. His voice was extremely hoarse. "Chin-mo, let go of me." He was still kissing her, so every word she said was sucked into his mouth and crushed. Chin-mo was very naughty. As they kissed, he carried her to his side and let her sit on his lap. He was dressed formally in a white shirt and black pants. He looked very noble, while she was wearing a small dress, which was also very rare. Perhaps it was because she rarely wore it that Chin-mo couldn't help himself. For him, when she dressed like this, it was the best medicine. At this moment, the scene of her sitting on his lap was very sexy, exciting, and a little abstinent. If Hee-hwan didn't know before, she would have understood now. She bit her lip and tried to break free. Chapter 42-72. That bastard obviously wanted to do it in the car. But she didn't expect that the more she struggled, the angrier he became. In the end, he couldn't take it anymore and really wanted to do it. Hee-hwan was anxious. She didn't want to have sex with him at this time, let alone in the car. Amidst those hurried breaths, a crisp sound rang out. She had slapped him. Chin-mo sobered up a little. He probably didn't expect Hee-hwan to do it for real. He was a little dazed and didn't come back to his senses for a long time. After a long time, Hee-hwan slowly moved herself to the seat next to him and said in a low voice, "I want to go home." Chin-mo stared at her and sobered up a little. Then he said in a hoarse voice, "Isn't this your home? Don't talk about divorce. I thought we made up after everything that happened between us." "Hee-hwan, are you going to deny it now?" Hee-hwan closed her eyes slightly. "I don't deny it, but I also don't deny my disappointment in you when I saw Ai-jia." She looked at him quietly. "Only one of us can be by your side. Chin-mo, think about it carefully." After saying that, Hee-hwan kicked the car door. Of course, she didn't manage to kick it open. Instead, her foot hurt. She turned back to look at Chin-mo. Chin-mo didn't seem to care. Hee-hwan was furious, but she couldn't do anything. She just sat there in silence. After a long time, she said very softly, "What do you mean by this? Chin-mo, you're keeping me here and not letting me go. You're playing a rogue with me because you want to keep seeing Ai-jia." Chin-mo looked at her and said in a hoarse voice, why are you crying? He Huan was very angry and turned her head away. It's none of your business. Open the car door. He put his hand on the steering wheel and knocked on it. It's hard to get a taxi now, especially in this neighborhood. Plus, you're dressed like this. It's none of your business. She said unreasonably. Chin Mo smiled. The child isn't mine. I'm not interested in sleeping with other women. All of a sudden, he dragged her over again and began to grope her. Tell me, if I had something with another woman, would I still be like this now? I would have long been a soft-footed shrimp. He Huan was embarrassed and angry at the same time. She was already angry, but he didn't seem to have anything else besides his jade-like body. Did he think that nothing else mattered between them other than their clean bodies? She was embarrassed and angry. She wanted to slap him a few more times, but he was too strong. She couldn't do anything about it. Just as the temperature in the car was slowly rising, his phone rang. Chin Mo ignored it and continued to bully He Huan, but his phone stubbornly rang again and again. He picked up the phone impatiently and was about to hang up when he suddenly froze. It was Ai Jia. He Huan also saw it, and his heart turned cold. He felt a little numb and bitter, an indescribable feeling. A moment later, she said in a low voice, "Take it." Chin Mo didn't pick it up immediately. Instead, he stared at He Huan's eyes. Do you care about her very much? He Huan didn't answer the question. Sometimes, some questions didn't need to be said a few times. If a man cared about you, he wouldn't make you feel wronged or afraid. It wasn't that He Huan didn't have confidence, but Ai Jia's intention was very obvious. However, Chin Mo insisted on keeping her by his side. This was a time bomb for their marriage. Chapter 42-73. He Huan had thought about reconciling with him. They were in a good relationship now and it was only a matter of time before they got married again. However, this was a relationship that had yet to be mended. Now that it was being attacked by another woman, He Huan didn't think she had the energy to fight. She didn't want to fight. What she wanted was Chin Mo's self-awareness. Obviously, he didn't. His way of comforting her was not on point. Even if he and Ai Jia had never slept together, even if the child wasn't his, he had accompanied her. This was definitely not a relationship between an artist and a boss. Moreover, they didn't have a contract before this. As they were talking, Ai Jia called again. This time, Chin Mo picked up. Ai Jia's voice was a little messy and her breathing was rapid. Chin Mo, I had a dream. I dreamed of him. Chin Mo closed his eyes. It was just a dream. No, it was very real. I dreamed that Chin Lu was by my side. I dreamed that he was really alive. Our child was also really alive. Ai Jia's voice was a little out of control. Chin Mo, I want to go find him. I really feel that he's still alive. He's still here. Chin Mo listened quietly. His voice was unusually calm and cruel. Listen to me, Chin Lu is no longer here. Ai Jia, we saw it with our own eyes. He knew that she was at the hotel, so he hung up and asked the doctor to go over. He had to rush over himself. He put down the phone and turned to look at He Huan. His voice was very soft. He Huan, actually, Chen is a twin. One of them stayed in America and was adopted by an important person. His name is Chin Lu. He has always known about his background. He looks very similar to me. Occasionally, when I go to America, we go for a drink or two. Ai Jia is his girlfriend. They were supposed to get married and Ai Jia is pregnant. He paused before continuing in a slightly suppressed voice. A few years ago, when you were pregnant, I went to America. Unfortunately, there was a terrorist attack. Qin Lu was the commander of that attack. He could have escaped unscathed, but in the end, he was blown up by a stray bullet in order to save me. There was no way for him to come back. He Huan was stunned. Qin Mo smiled bitterly. Ai Jia was his girlfriend. Later on, she had a miscarriage. I accompanied her. That's all our relationship is. After a few years, she probably hasn't recovered from her psychological injury. She might be living like a normal person, but she's living in the past. She thinks that Qin Lu isn't dead. At this moment, He Huan was especially calm. She curled up and sat quietly for a while before whispering, Qin Mo, open the car door and I'll go upstairs. I won't stop you if you want to go now, but you have to think carefully. Did Ai Jia mistake you for Qin Lu? If so, think carefully about your choice. She looked up at him. I can't live in the shadows of others forever. I'm not that great. Even if I know about the land of Qin, it's the same. Let's just say that I'm selfish. Qin Mo's fingers clenched the steering wheel, and he couldn't say a word. In the end, he opened the car door and handed her the house keys. His voice was a little hoarse. I'll come back early. He Huan didn't say anything but smiled faintly. She had only taken a few steps out of the car when Qin Mo followed her out. He Huan. She turned her head. He walked over to her with a jacket in his hand and draped it over her shoulders. It's cold at night. Don't catch a cold. She looked at him fixedly, unable to say a word. Chapter 42-74. Qin Mo buttoned her buttons one by one before taking a closer look at her. He then said hoarsely, I'll be back soon. Trust me, okay? He gazed deeply at her as he spoke. He Huan felt as though she had fallen into an abyss. She couldn't escape even if she wanted to. She knew that she shouldn't be soft-hearted. She couldn't agree to his request. But when she looked at him, her heart softened. It was because of him, not because of him and Ai Jia. He Huan knew this very well. He Huan suddenly said, I'll go with you. Under the lights, Qin Mo looked surprised. You're going too? Didn't you say that you are in a normal relationship with her? Why can't I go? Speaking of which, I'm her future sister-in-law. He Huan smiled faintly. At this moment, her mentality had changed. If she gave up on Qin Mo, it would be like giving him to Ai Jia. Why would she let her have it for free? She was clearly a hypocrite. What did she mean by treating Qin Mo as Qin Lu and saying that Qin Lu was still alive? Who was she trying to fool? How could a woman who had gone through so much in the entertainment industry take things so hard? He Huan wouldn't believe it even if she died. But she didn't want to tell Qin Mo about it. A straight man wouldn't understand a hypocrite like her. Qin Mo looked at her deeply and said hoarsely, Okay, get in. He Huan followed him into the car. Qin Mo's hands were on the steering wheel. He paused for a moment before stepping on the accelerator. The car drove very fast. In less than half an hour, they arrived at Ai Jia's hotel. Qin Mo brought He Huan to the top floor and knocked on the door. About 10 seconds later, Ai Jia opened the door. Even though He Huan was mentally prepared to see her in a bathrobe and smell good, she couldn't resist the temptation. Ai Jia was only wearing a silk negligee that was as thin as a cicada's wings. It was faintly discernible and He Huan was willing to bet that there was nothing underneath. Ai Jia's hair was let down and her makeup was a little off, but it made her look even more seductive. Not only He Huan, but even Qin Mo was surprised. Because it was inappropriate. AI Jia looked at them and leaned his head against the door. He smiled faintly and seemed to be in a trance. He's still here. Qin Emo noticed that something was wrong with her expression. He was about to say something to He Huan when he turned his head and saw that He Huan's nose was bleeding. He Huan looked at Qin Emo helplessly. I didn't want to. I just couldn't help it. There was a hint of coquettishness in her tone, an emotion that He Huan rarely revealed. Qin Emo was actually quite tempted, but now was not the time to be tempted. He immediately said to AI Jia, "Give me some tissues." AI Jia was surprised and glanced at He Huan. He Huan smiled sheepishly at her. Sorry to bother you. Qin Emo insisted on coming. AI Jia went to get a tissue and handed it to He Huan. Qin Emo took it and wiped the blood off He Huan's face. He held her with one arm and sat down on the sofa. After a long time, the bleeding finally stopped. He still blamed her. You're already a grown-up, but you still have a nosebleed. You're so useless. He Huan looked at him. It's a normal reaction. You're not a man. He knocked on her head. His tone was fierce, but there was a hint of affection in it. He Huan only smiled faintly. Look at AI Jia. Did she take some medicine? I don't think she's right. Chapter 4275. Qin Emo then went to check on AI Jia, only to see a bottle of sleeping pills on the table in front of AI Jia. A few pills were spilled on the table. He frowned. Why did you take so many pills again? The doctor said it would affect your nerves greatly. AI Jia chuckled softly and leaned on the sofa. She said carelessly, as long as I can think of him, I don't care. AI Jia, Qin Lu is gone. Qin Mo's voice was a little tight. He would want you to live well. Is it the kind of life worse than death? AI Jia suddenly hugged him. Her voice was low and humble. Qin Mo, don't ignore me. Otherwise, I won't be able to find Qin Lu's shadow in this world. I can't hold on to him. I'm afraid I'll forget him. I'm so scared, so scared. A mature, beautiful, sexy woman hugging her man would make any woman angry. He Huan was no exception. However, she had a nosebleed again. She was almost not angry anymore. She was angry and amused at the same time. This was clearly a scene in a movie. Why couldn't Qin Mo see it clearly? The lines were so old. Maybe Qin Mo enjoyed the poignant beauty of this scene. He Huan wiped her nosebleed and said, Qin Mo, should I leave first? You stay and comfort your sister-in-law. AI Jia is right. You are the best gift God has left for her. She finished her words with a fake smile. Maybe people would say that she was heartless and didn't know how to sympathize. Sorry, He Huan, was cold like this. She was an adult, but she didn't have any sense of propriety. She was sure that AI Jia dressed like this to seduce Qin Mo. It was probably because of her appearance that AI Jia was so ruthless. She just didn't expect that she would come with her. He Huan had just finished speaking when her eyes fell on a small trash can. There was a small package inside. She was surprised and shocked. Then, she looked at AI Jia. AI Jia didn't look normal. Her face was abnormally red. He Huan thought that she had taken sleeping pills, but now he knew that she must have taken the village medicine herself. He Huan didn't point it out and didn't leave, however, Qin Mo did not know that. He walked over and patted Momo's little head. Didn't we agree? Just wait for the doctor to come and give her an injection. She often does this. Often? Huan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Should she be glad that Qin Mo's willpower was strong enough? He actually hadn't succeeded yet. Aijia's village medicine was all for nothing. So she nodded obediently, then I'll wait a little longer. It's just that my head is a little dizzy and my nose is bleeding quite a bit. She rarely acted like a spoiled child. Qin Mo felt a little distressed. He lowered his head and kissed her. I'll ask Aunt Lon to cook something delicious for you when we get back. She hugged his neck and bit her lip. When can we go home? Qin Mo's heart was actually rippling. He wished he could grow a pair of wings and go home immediately so he could hold this little vixen in his arms and dote on her. She was really tempting tonight, but they were in Aijia's apartment, so he couldn't do anything no matter how impulsive he was. At this moment, the doctor happened to come over. The doctor was an experienced doctor. At a glance, Aijia didn't look like she had taken sleeping pills. However, he couldn't say it out loud, so he just said, "Make her vomit." You can only make her vomit. Aijia was also very uncomfortable at this moment. She couldn't care less about anything else. In the end, she vomited in a very embarrassing manner. She didn't even think about seducing him. Chapter 4276. Qin Mo didn't say anything. He only sent the doctor away after Aijia was gone. Then, he left with Huan. After going out, Huan looked at him. Are you going to take care of her like this forever? As long as she says that she's not feeling well and misses Qin Lu, you have to come over to hug her and comfort her. This time, she's wearing a sling. What if it's in the bathroom next time? Are you going to take it all in? Qin Mo looked at her. Why do you think so? Huan walked in front of him and said, I don't believe that you don't know what medicine Aijia took today. Qin Mo was speechless. He caught up with her and held her hand. Huan. She said absent-mindedly, you know it, so I won't say it. Qin Mo held her hand and suddenly pulled her into his arms. He didn't do anything but just hugged her. He rested his chin on her thin shoulder and said in a hoarse voice, but it's true that Qin Lu died for me. It's also true that Aijia had a miscarriage. It's also true that I feel guilty all these years. Huan didn't say anything. She just hugged him slowly and patted his back gently. Regarding Aijia, it seemed that they didn't need to talk much. Later, they went back to the apartment together. Auntie Lon was old, but she still got up to cook supper for the two little ones. She was an old lady, so she always talked more. Qin Mo looked at Huan while eating noodles and smiled faintly. Huan put on a fake smile. Later, when they reached the bedroom, Qin Mo asked for sex. Huan refused and pushed him aside. I'm tired. She was like an insect. No one knew what she was thinking. Qin Mo rolled to the side and watched as Huan grabbed a set of pajamas and headed to the bathroom. She was still wearing the same vibrant gown. His gaze was a little deep as he leaned against the headboard and smoked a cigarette. Then he got off the bed and followed her to the bathroom. He used some forceful methods on her. An hour later, he came out with Huan in his arms. His face was full of satisfaction. Huan was a little angry, but he was no match for Qin Mo. Later on, he reluctantly refused and gave in twice. Even so, Qin Mo still felt very different from before. When it was over, Qin Mo let out a sigh of relief and lowered his head to look at the little fellow who had been bullied miserably by him. Huan was a little angry, but he didn't say anything. He smiled. Angry again. Didn't you feel good just now? As he spoke, his voice was clearly hoarse, low and hoarse. It hurts. This time, Hee-hwan turned her body away and did not look at him. He was really too hateful, always doing as he pleased in bed. Chi-Nemo smiled generously and chased after her to kiss her thin shoulders. As they kissed, he couldn't restrain himself anymore. Hee-hwan seemed to have felt it. She said faintly, "You've had enough. If you want more, you'll have to think of your own way. I want to sleep." Chi-Nemo found it a little funny and kissed her again. "Then how about I take you, okay?" Hee-hwan turned her head and glared at him. Chi-Nemo chuckled. "Just sleep. I'll do it myself." Hee-hwan pressed against his chest. "Don't you have any shame?" Her cute look made his heart soften. He hugged her waist. "I'll take you to shower. You can't sleep like this." Hee-hwan's eyes were half closed. Her little head was in his arms. Her voice was like a kitten. "No, I just want to sleep." Later, she was afraid that he would mess around again, so she simply hugged his neck. Chapter 42-77. It was a wonderful feeling to have a soft girl hugging him in the middle of the night. She was the girl he had liked since he was a child. Chi-Mo's voice was very soft, as if he was afraid of waking her up. "Have you forgiven me? You're not angry anymore?" Hee-hwan's voice came from his arms. "I didn't say that. I'm still angry." Chi-Mo had an indescribable feeling in his heart. He reached out and rubbed her little head. "Then I'll do it until I'm not angry anymore, okay?" Hee-hwan still hugged him, feeling that he was letting him off too easily. He knew how to do this. She was a little angry and leaned over to bite his neck again. Chi-Mo was also quite speechless. "You've become a puppy again. You only know how to bite." Hee-hwan didn't say anything and just hugged him. In fact, her nerves were a little tense, but after a while, she strangely fell asleep. Her palm-sized face was buried in his neck, and her breath was also warm. It was itchy and hot, but it was the best temperature that Chi-Mo had ever felt. He reached out and touched her face gently with his fingers. The soft touch made his heart skip a beat. In fact, although Hee-hwan was still fierce, he could feel the change in her. She had clearly softened, and she clearly liked him. It turned out that the feeling of being liked was so wonderful. Chi-Mo was in a very good mood and fell asleep in extreme exhaustion. The next morning, Hee-hwan woke up. Her body felt as if it had been run over by a car the night before. As soon as she woke up, she felt that someone was restlessly touching her. She was a little annoyed and kicked him. "You're so annoying." Chi-Mo chuckled and leaned over to kiss her. "Aren't you going to see City today?" Hee-hwan pulled the quilt over her head and ignored him. Chi-Mo could only hug her. "Are we going to pick up Hee-hwan?" "You." She couldn't breathe being hugged by him like this, so she got out of the quilt and looked at him for a long time. "I want to go back to my mother's house." Chi-Mo stared into her eyes and pondered, "Well, let's go to pick up Hee-hwan first, and then we'll go to your house together." Hee-hwan was rather speechless. "I mean, I'll go back alone." As she spoke, she lifted the quilt and stared at him. "Chi-Mo, you should know that my mom doesn't like you right now. Why are you still getting close to her?" She was going to change her clothes, but he was still lying on the bed. He seemed to chuckle softly, then said, "You don't know why I went up to you." Hee-hwan was already in the changing room, and his voice drifted over. "You have a lot of dark history, and now you have AI. I can understand you, but my mom really won't. She will only sympathize with you. Chi-Mo, you have to understand this." As she spoke, Hee-se walked out and leaned against the door, looking at him. She picked a simple black t-shirt and a gauze skirt of the same color. She was very thin, and her features were exquisite. She was dressed very beautifully. Although Huan wasn't a super beauty, and she was too small and skinny, in Qin Mo's eyes, she was unique, especially the feeling of hugging her was super good. He looked at her eagerly, and after a while, he said, "I know. So, I'd better go back by myself." Huan glanced at him and went to the bathroom. When she was brushing her teeth, Qin Mo came over and hugged her waist from behind. Huan pursed her lips. "Qin Mo, what are you doing?" Chapter 4278. He leaned against her warm neck and said in a low and husky voice, "Huan, will you go on a blind date?" Huan was brushing her teeth. Hearing his words, she brushed hard a few times and there were still bubbles in her mouth. Yes. What a cruel little thing. He didn't know if he was angry or happy. He opened his mouth and bit her neck. At first, Huan didn't know what he was doing. After a while, she understood his sinister intention. She closed her eyes and said, "Qin Mo, can you not be so childish? Go and smash my car again. I don't care." He said in a low voice, "But you're not allowed to go on a blind date." As he said that, he looked at the bite mark and blew with satisfaction. "Last night, you were still tossing and turning on my bed. Have you forgotten that you look like a little wildcat?" Huan spat and frowned. "It's not the first time for you to do something like this, Qin Mo." He was so angry that he bit her again. Huan whined, "If you bite me again, you'll really become a puppy." Qin Mo turned her around and pressed her against the counter. He said seriously, "There's a constraint between us now, huh?" Huan looked at him quietly and stopped joking after a while. "Do you want to hear the truth?" Qin Mo didn't say anything. He just held his breath a little longer. Huan lowered her eyes and smiled faintly. "Actually, what I want is very simple. I've said that I can't tolerate AIG's matter all the time. Even if I can, I have to think about my parents." She looked at him and wanted to say something, but she stopped him. "Qin Mo, don't say that love is between two people. It's not like that. At least, it's not between two people. We still have Aijia and Rongyu. You may think it's unfair, but think about it. Rongyu and I will never meet in a hotel in private like you do. Qin Mo, to be honest, I don't feel safe at all. I can bear it, but it doesn't mean that I'm willing to let my mother worry about me. So I really can't promise you now. I can accompany you to see her once or twice, but I can't be with you all the time. Think about it, I have a lot of things to do. If one day you can't bear it, I don't think I can bear it. So instead of waiting, now." "That's not possible." Qin Mo's voice was firm. "I don't have that kind of feelings for her." Huan just smiled. With that kind of figure and style, even a woman would be tempted, let alone a man. "Qin Mo, I'm just saying that if you keep taking care of her like this and rush to her side with just a phone call, I don't think we can be your wife. I don't want to see my husband going around other women all the time. It's the same with Qin Lu's woman. When Qin Lu passed away, Dad and Mom should be the most sad. It's you, not Ai Jia. I can't see how sad she is. I only see her trying to seduce you and treat you as a substitute." After saying that, she smiled again. "Sorry, I've always been straightforward. I don't know how to beat around the bush." Chapter 4279. Qin Mo frowned and said, "Huan, aren't you being a little cruel? She's Qin Lu's girlfriend." Huan wasn't surprised by his attitude at all. She lowered her eyes and said calmly, maybe I'm being cruel. Chin-mo, I'm just saying what I think. If you think I'm being cruel or inconsiderate, then forget it. She was really going to leave after she said that. Chin-mo grabbed her arm and frowned. Hee-hwan. Hee-hwan smiled and said, you didn't ask yesterday, and it was too late. I didn't want to quarrel with you. Now that I've made it clear, it's up to you. Chin-mo's fingers grabbed her tightly, but he let go after a while and frowned. Hee-hwan, it's not what you think. I know. That's why I don't quarrel with you. I understand to a certain extent, she said with a smile. Chin-mo, you can't ask too much of me. Just treat it as me being selfish. As she said that, she broke free from his hand and walked to the door without hesitation. Chin-mo locked her down again. This time, she was pinned against the door. He used the innate advantage of being a man and a woman to trap her. His voice was hoarse. Hee-hwan, you're being unreasonable. Hee-hwan was trapped like this. She struggled for a while and then stopped. He wouldn't do anything in broad daylight. She raised her chin and said, if I'm being unreasonable, do you think I could still come back with you last night, talk to you nicely, and, she turned her face to the side and felt a little hot, but she continued, can I still do it with you? Chin-mo smiled and touched her burning face with his fingers. His voice was so deep that it made her blush and her heart beat faster. Am I the only one who wants to do it? Hwan, you want it too. He usually called her Hee-hwan and rarely called her Hwan, but every time he called her that, he was aroused. Hee-hwan looked at him with a straight face, surprised and a little shocked. Meanwhile, Chin-mo began to kiss her. He kissed her gently, as if he was touching a precious treasure. Unwilling to be kissed by him, Hee-hwan turned her face away. Don't do this every time. But you really like it, don't you? Chin-mo's voice was filled with laughter. Hee-hwan, on the other hand, couldn't smile. She only felt sad. She let him kiss her and asked softly, Chin-mo, you mean that you still want to take care of her, don't you? He didn't stop kissing her. After a while, he whispered, I promise I won't be alone with her when you're not around, okay? Hee-hwan turned around and looked at him. Her gaze was very focused. Chin-mo felt that Hee-hwan had never looked at him so seriously before. He just let her look at him and looked into her eyes. After a long time, Hee-hwan finally said in a low voice, Chin-mo, if you really want to be a hero, then forget it. I'm serious. She wasn't being impulsive. She had been thinking about it for the whole night. A few years ago, Rong-yu and Ai-jia were standing between them. A few years later, Rong-yu woke up and she was relieved, but Ai-jia was still standing between them. She was a little angry at first, but she realized that she could never be a woman like Ai-jia. Perhaps, Hee-hwan also knew how to use tricks. She was forcing Chin-mo to make a choice. She didn't care about the result. Just like she said, she was selfish. Chapter 4280. Yes. Her smile was a little bitter. Chin-mo, your tender feelings for the fairer sex will only hurt everyone, including me. I'm just protecting myself now. She took a deep breath. Let's calm down first. Hee-hwan still left. Chin-mo stood alone in the washroom. He said that Ai-jia was mentally ill. He didn't tell Hee-hwan that the separation of life and death had also left a shadow in his heart. That was why he indulged Ai-jia. Or perhaps Ai-jia's existence would remind him repeatedly that the land of Chin really existed. Chin-mo stood for a long time before he went out. Hee-hwan was still there. She was eating breakfast. He sat opposite her and looked at her. I'll drive you later. No need. I'll take a taxi to the venue and drive the car away. Hee-Hwan looked down. Chin Mo, I'm serious. Please think about it. If you marry Ai Jia one day, consider whether I'll raise Hee-Hwan. You know what I mean. Hee-Hwan. He suddenly gritted his teeth. You can continue. I can't guarantee that you can walk out of here. You're just bluffing. Hee-Hwan looked down. She just ate her breakfast and didn't say anything else to him. Later, he drove her to the venue to get her car. Hee-Hwan sat in her car while Chin Mo sat beside her. She lowered the window. He bent down. You really don't want to think about it. Calm down. Hee-Hwan smiled faintly. You should think about it. Do you want to stay with me or continue to comfort Ai Jia? Chin Mo stared at her for a few seconds. He straightened his body but didn't say anything in the end. Hee-Hwan smiled at him and drove the car away. As for Chin Mo, he just stood there quietly for a long time. Hee-Hwan drove and looked at the rearview mirror from time to time. She saw that Chin Mo was still there. She didn't relent. Because she was a woman. Once he gave way, there would be nothing left. No matter what happened between her and Chin Mo in the future, it was between her and Chin Mo. It should not be changed by Ai Jia's appearance. Hee-Hwan really could not sympathize with a woman like Ai Jia. Moreover, after sensing that the woman had ulterior motives, she would not be so generous. Hee-Hwan's mood was a little complicated. When she returned home, she was still a little absent-minded. Su Cheng was also an experienced person. Besides, she had heard about what happened between Hee-Hwan and Chin Mo, so she asked, have you really forgiven Chin Mo? You want to start over? Hee-Hwan looked at the rice in her bowl and thought for a moment. I haven't decided yet. Su Cheng sighed in a low voice. When your father said that he didn't agree with you too, it was also because he was angry at Chin Mo at that time. But now, if you two are really together and he treats you well, you may consider it. But I only have one request. Hee-Hwan looked up. Su Cheng said in a low voice, this time, you must think about remarrying. Don't think about it for at least 2 years. It doesn't matter if you live together or have sex. Anyway, we were husband and wife. If you have a child, we can help you raise it. But Hee-Hwan, don't let me take that piece of paper home easily. Hee-Hwan's eyes were a little misty. She suddenly understood why her mother said that. She pursed her lips and whispered after a long time, Mom, I know. Su Cheng was also in a trance for a moment. Then she whispered, actually, Chin Mo is not bad. It's hard to find someone as good as him. Chapter 4281. She said it in a low voice, but Hee-Hwan heard it clearly. She felt a little sad. She knew that her mother was very open-minded when it came to relationships. This time, she spoke up for Chin Mo because she was worried that Hee-Hwan wouldn't be able to find a good man. She was also worried about her own future. She thought that she didn't want to give in to Ai Jia partly because of herself and partly because of her parents. Her mother and father were old. They didn't have many children like the Chin family did. They only had one child. If she wasn't happy, they wouldn't be happy. How could they have a happy old age? So, she let Chin Mo make the decision. She didn't tell Su Cheng about it because she knew her mother's temper. If she knew, she wouldn't let her be with Chin Mo again. She was partial to Chin Mo and hoped to be with Chin Mo. She knew it very well. Hee-Hwan didn't say much and just nodded. Seeing that Hee-Hwan understood, Su Cheng didn't make it difficult for her. She hadn't seen her for a month and naturally missed her. Apart from delicious food, she also prepared a lot of Hehuan's favorite food. At 3 in the afternoon, Hehuan couldn't stand it anymore and said that she wanted to go back to read her script. You only know how to work your script. Su Cheng was a little dissatisfied. Look at other women of your age. What are they doing? They dress up nicely, go shopping, drink tea, play cards, and so on. Then, she looked at Hehuan's dress with disdain. It's rare for you to wear a dress, and it's so black. Let me tell you, men are visual animals. There are a lot of vixens out there nowadays. You have to be careful, especially since Qin Mo sees female stars every day. Each of them is prettier than the other, and each of them is more revealing than the other. Hehuan pretended to smile. I don't think they're revealing as much as me. Su Cheng was speechless. Don't talk back to me. Hehuan picked up an apple. Think about it. Chen Chen dresses up as a man every day, but she still keeps Lan Yu under control. Lan Yu is crazy about her. Su Cheng smirked coldly. Lan Yu used to be an artist, right? He had some special hobbies, but Qin Mo doesn't. Anyway, you'd better be more careful. Since you're free today, I'll take you to pick out some clothes that you can wear. Don't keep dressing like a high school student. Don't think about it. You're a woman in your early 30s now. Women at your age need to be graceful, understand? As Su Cheng said that, she flipped her hair. Naturally, it was beautiful. Hehuan imitated Su Chen's actions and felt as though her eyes were about to cramp up. She said that she was not suitable. Su Chen snorted, you're not born with it. Just learn and you'll get it. Remember, you're a woman. I think a couple should look inside. Hehuan was still trying to convince her. Su Cheng didn't mind. TSK, both inside and outside are important. You only have the inside but not the outside. Why would a man be interested in knowing what's inside? Hehuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But thinking that she hadn't spent time with her mother for a long time, she decided to go with Su Cheng. Su Cheng took Hehuan to the best shopping mall in B City and to the best brands. The He family wasn't short of money, and Hehuan was rich herself. She could totally afford these brands. But looking at the rows of clothes, Hehuan was speechless. Mom, it's awkward to dress like this. Su Cheng looked at her. How is it awkward? We have to be more formal when we go out to eat. Otherwise, Qin Mo will treat you like a child. He won't, Hehuan muttered. Chapter 4282. As she said that, Su Cheng smiled thoughtfully and looked at her. You said that Qin Mo doesn't treat you like a child, so you have to treat yourself like a woman. Hehuan didn't say anything and let Su Cheng pick out some clothes for her. Su Cheng was very sensitive to fashion, so naturally, she had good taste. After a while, she picked out a few sets of clothes for Hehuan to try on. After Hehuan tried them on, they were indeed not bad, but they were too restrictive. Mom, I don't usually wear them, Hehuan couldn't help but say. Su Cheng looked at her. You won't be filming all year round, right? If you're going to be Mrs. Qin with Qin Mo in the future, you'll have to socialize, right? When you're by Qin Mo's side, people have to think that you're Mrs. Qin, not just a little assistant. Hehuan disagreed. Mom, I'm a director too. Why do I have to be Qin Mo's wife? Why can't people say that Qin Mo is my husband? Su Cheng smiled faintly and reached out to caress Hehuan's head. After a while, she said, because you are in the entertainment industry. You know that resources are important in this industry. Hehuan didn't say anything. Actually, her mom was right. No matter how successful the show she directed was, as long as she and Chin Mo went out, he would always be the main focus. This was something that she could not change no matter what she did. He Huan also smiled bitterly. Su Ching could understand her feelings and patted her arm. Actually, it's not a conflict, Huan. Women can balance their career and family, just like men sometimes give a woman face. Looking at her mother, He Huan suddenly bit her lip and asked softly, really? Of course. Look at how much your father respects me. Also, your father-in-law used to be so domineering. In front of Liang Qiu, he's like a house cat. Actually, his temper used to be worse than Qin Mo's. Su Chen lowered her voice. And he's not very clean. He likes women. He Huan chuckled. In reality, she knew that her mother-in-law, Yi Liangqiu, had been very powerful and resourceful back then. Even a playboy like Qin Anlin had been completely subdued by her. So a man will respect a woman if he loves her. Su Qing said softly, marriage needs to be managed. Even if you and Qin Mo get together, you can't be away from home all year round. Which man can bear to see his wife only once or twice? He can't bear it just physically. To be fair, Qin Mo had been very obedient in the past few years. He had been waiting until He Huan didn't cause any scandals. He Huan didn't say anything after hearing her words. Su Ching asked the shopping assistant to wrap up the clothes she tried on just now. She was about to swipe her credit card when He Huan came back to her senses and said, just buy 1 or 2 sets. I can't wear so many. Su Ching looked at her. Look at how petty you are. These clothes are nothing. She seemed to have thought of something. You and Qin Mo didn't see each other for the past few years. Did he provide for you? I have my own money. Besides, I can take care of the whole family, He Huan couldn't help but say. She wasn't trying to exonerate Qin Mo, but they didn't get along very well back then. She had left not long after giving birth to Yi Huan. She had never talked about raising a family, because He Huan had never lacked money. She remembered that when Qin Mo went to the United States for a business trip, he went to her apartment once. Her apartment in the United States wasn't big, it was only about 100 square meters. He stayed there for 2 days and probably wasn't satisfied, so he replaced all the furniture in her apartment with new ones. He also seemed to have bought a bunch of clothes and placed them in the closet. Chapter 4283. Back then, she was still young, so Qin Mo had bought her clothes for girls. However, He Huan had never worn them before, and they were still in her apartment in America. Thinking about it, she felt that she had not been good to him all those years. Of course, she did not regret it. She was not a soft-hearted person, because it was not all her fault. Seeing that she was not saying anything, Su Ching dragged her to the next store to pick out clothes. After going back and forth several times, they bought about a dozen sets. He Huan suspected that Su Cheng's card was about to be maxed out. She could not help but say, Mom, will Dad think that you are a spendthrift when he receives the bill? Su Ching glanced at her. I don't rely on your father's money to live. He Huan felt that her mother was quite domineering. She was small and did not earn money, but she was fierce. Su Ching asked the chauffeur to leave the clothes in the car, and then dragged He Huan to a high-end lingerie store. She forced He Huan to try on a few sets of lingerie, as well as a few sexy silk pajamas, suspenders, and lace. He Huan refused to buy them, but Su Ching paid the bill without hesitation. She said, if necessary, we still need to have fun as husband and wife. She swiped her card and finally handed a stack of bills to He Huan. You can report this to Chin Mo. Spend as much of his money as you can in the future. Even if you are not husband and wife now, he will always chase after you. You two are sleeping together, right? This money is spent on him. Huan did not know whether to laugh or cry, but she actually felt that it made sense. After he was done, he carried the bags himself. He couldn't let the chauffeur carry them. After all, they were private items. Seeing that it was getting late, Su Cheng suggested that they eat out together. Thinking that they were going to see City the next day, Huan nodded and said yes. After this meeting, she would not be back for at least a month. However, they did not expect to run into the Qin family when they ate together. Qin Anlin and Yi Liangqiu were eating out with Yi Huan and Qin Mo. The atmosphere was strange, especially when Yi Huan looked at Qin Mo. Dad, didn't you say that Mom is in Sea City? The atmosphere was even more strange. Yi Huan was stunned for a moment. She went over and picked up Yi Huan. Mom came back last minute. Isn't she here to see Yi Huan now? Yi Huan replied with an "oh" and looked at her eagerly. Yi Huan smiled again and kissed her. Then, he turned to look at Su Chen with a pleading look in his eyes. Su Cheng understood what she meant. Moreover, she wasn't cold-hearted. She also loved Yi Huan dearly. Su Cheng immediately pulled out a chair for Su Cheng. Yi Huan sat beside him. The atmosphere was very harmonious. Qin Mo immediately pulled out a chair for Su Cheng and arranged for Yi Huan to sit beside him. The atmosphere was very harmonious. Qin Anlin and Yi Liangqiu were still a little nervous. After all, it was their son's fault. They did not expect Qin Mo to regret it so quickly. They also knew Su Cheng's character. She would not give in easily. At this time, it was not easy for everyone to sit together and eat together. They also used their eyes to signal their son to cherish this opportunity. If he messed up again or hit his wife in the future, they wouldn't care anymore. Because everyone was around Yi Huan, the atmosphere was very harmonious. After dinner, Qin Mo took the initiative to send Su Cheng and Yi Huan home. Yi Huan wanted to tag along, but it was already past 9 o'clock and the little girl should be asleep, so she didn't go. I want to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. Follow You Read Literature on WeChat, chatting about life and looking for a bosom friend. Chapter 4284. Qin Mo sent Su Cheng and Yi Huan to the parking lot. Su Cheng suddenly said, "The chauffeur's car is in front. Qin Mo, you can send Yi Huan home." As she said that, she put the bag in Yi Huan's hand. "Sleep early tonight. We still have to go to Sea City tomorrow." Yi Huan was surprised. "Mom, I'll stay at your place." Su Cheng smiled. "Forget it." She touched her daughter's face with her fingers and sighed. "I want to keep you as you were when you were young, but you've grown up. Yi Huan, your father and I are old. Come home to visit us more often." Yi Huan suddenly felt a little sad and didn't know what to say. It seemed that all these years, because of her and Qin Mo, her parents hadn't really been happy. Only then did Yi Huan realize that she wasn't the only one sad in this world. She was sad about this fact. In the end, she didn't say anything and just hugged Su Cheng. She said softly, "Mom, I'll be fine." Su Cheng was usually the fiercest, but at this moment, she was really choking up. She lowered her voice and said, "Yi Huan, you have to make yourself happy." She paused and said with a slightly depressed voice, "Your father and I have tasted everything we should in this life. We just hope that you can also." She didn't say the rest of the sentence, but Yi Huan should understand. After saying that, Su Qing gently pushed Hehuan away. Sleep early. Then, she got into the car. Hehuan stood there and watched the car slowly drive away. She still felt a little sad. Mom, it's rare. Qin Mo had been standing beside her. She didn't move, so he didn't rush her. He just slowly went over and hugged her from behind. His voice was a little hoarse. I'll send you home. As he said that, he took the bag in her hand. However, when he took it, he glanced at it and was a little surprised. Then, he looked at her. As for Hehuan, she didn't notice the look in Qin Mo's eyes. She was still immersed in her sadness. When she came back to herself, she was already in Qin Mo's car. She blinked and asked, "Where are we going?" "To send you home," said Qin Mo lightly. Then, he casually asked, "To go shopping?" Hehuan nodded absent-mindedly. Then, she seemed to recall something and looked at Qin Mo. "Oh, I don't think you've ever given me pocket money." Qin Mo was focused on driving, but a faint smile appeared on his lips. "Why did you think of this?" Hehuan thought for a moment and said, "I'll tell you later." He was still smiling. "In the morning, you were so cruel to draw a line between us. Why do you want to pay for the family support now?" "Pocket money, all right." "It's not money for the family at all," she muttered in a low voice. "Mo," Qin Mo said. "How said, Qin Qing Mo S Qing. Cheng." Huanzhen said. Su Qing Mo stopped the car. "What's the difference?" Hehuan's heart was beating fast because of his teasing. However, she pretended to be calm and coughed. "It's different." Then, she didn't look at him. She turned her head to look out of the car window and said to herself, "Pocket money is pocket money." Qin Mo looked at the way she turned her head. She looked so cute. Suddenly, he felt that Hehuan was different. She was softer than before. He wasn't someone with low EQ. He understood it after some thought. Because Hehuan had him in her heart, she didn't leave like before. Now, she had something to worry about. 2 movie tickets for Avengers 4. Only $2.58 buy 2 tickets. Only after you collect them. Method of collection: open your Alipay account on your phone. Enter the password. Yao Yao is sending movie tickets. Chapter 4285. Qin Mo's heart instantly softened. He gazed at her for a long time and couldn't help reaching out to caress her face. His voice was hoarse. "Hehuan, we can talk about this when we get home." Hehuan was still looking out the window and ignored him. She didn't slap his fingers away either. Qin Mo liked her, but he had never felt such tenderness before. He wanted to be more intimate, but the green light turned green. He chuckled and started the car. The car finally stopped outside her apartment. Qin Mo had been here before, but he had never gone up, let alone spent the night there. Hehuan held her bag silently. "Good night." She had only moved a little when her arm was caught by him. Qin Mo turned his body sideways and said in a hoarse voice, "You want to leave just like that?" She turned her head and stared at him with her small, full lips pressed into a straight line. Qin Mo held the steering wheel with one hand and rubbed his chin with the other. He smiled. "Didn't you want to ask me for pocket money?" His gaze landed on the bag in her hand. It was very clear. Hehuan was sure that she saw a hint of evil in his eyes. She bit her lower lip. "Not now." Qin Mo chuckled and changed the topic. "Oh yeah, what did you buy today?" She was so embarrassed that she didn't dare to show him the things in her hand. She thought about it and stuffed all the bills in his hand. Look at it yourself. Chin Mo was amused. Then, he took it and looked at it. He didn't know much about women's products, but he knew a little about the top brands. He could tell that she had lost a lot of money, and it was all with Uncle Kim's card. He said casually, "How can you use your parents' money when you're married?" "I'm divorced." Huan said unhappily. She couldn't leave now because he was still holding her hand and not letting her go. Chin Mo saw the last bill and his smile deepened. He looked at her and said, "Why are there only a few bags left?" "The driver took them first," Huan said unhappily. Chin Mo nodded. "That's true. You have to be careful with your underwear." As soon as he finished speaking, Huan suddenly met his eyes. He was smiling, and there was an inexplicable meaning in his smile. Thus, Huan knew that he had been teasing her all along. She pulled her hand away. "I'm going home." "Wait." Chin Mo called her. Disappointed, Huan's eyes met his. Then, he smiled faintly and took out a checkbook. He wrote 2 million and put it in her palm. "Take this back to your mother." He took out an envelope from the cabinet and gave it to her. "I'll transfer 2 million yuan to you every month. It's pocket money now, but it can be used to support the family in the future." Huan looked at the card and then at him. He bit his lips and said, "It's not enough." Huan was at him. He made her starve to death. Chin Mo's smile deepened and his eyes became gentle. He reached out and stroked her short hair. It was fluffy and cute. His voice suddenly became hoarse. "I know." Huan looked at him with tears in her eyes and got out of the car quietly. Chapter 4286. When they stood in the elevator together, he couldn't help but press her against the elevator wall and kiss her. Huan passively accepted his kiss. Her fingers clenched and loosened, and the bag in her hand fell to the ground. But no one was in the mood to care about it. He couldn't help but deepen the kiss, from a gentle peck on the corner of her mouth to a fierce kiss. Chin Mo rarely hid his desire like this. The veins on his forehead almost popped out. It wouldn't look good if he was aroused, so he had been restraining himself. But now he couldn't care so much. He even wanted to hug her in the elevator. He kissed her ferociously. Her small body was squeezed between him and the elevator wall, and her bones were hurting from the kiss. She didn't have time to care that she had been brought into the whirlpool. After a long time, Chin Mo finally let go of her. She was the person he cherished, and he wouldn't really do anything to her here. As soon as he let go, Huan's body slid down. Her fingers immediately pressed against the elevator wall for support. Her face was slightly red, and her eyes were full of moisture. Her red lips were slightly opened, she looked a little intoxicated. Chin Mo's fingers gently touched her lips, and he said in a low voice, "Huan, you make me feel so accomplished." He kissed her again, and then squatted down to pick up the bags for her. Huan's face turned red again. After entering the apartment, she watched Chin Mo sit on the sofa and felt a little embarrassed. "I'll help you get some water." She turned to leave, but his strong arm wrapped around her from behind, and then she fell into his arms. "Stay with me." His lips were pressed against her neck, and his breath was hot. Huan sat on his lap and quietly untied his hand on her waist. "We just talked this morning." He smelled the delicate fragrance of the meat and chuckled. "I thought you would let me." She didn't let him say that word. She quickly turned around in his arms and bit his lips. "Don't say it." Chin Mo looked at her and suddenly remembered what happened in the car. He suppressed the desire in his body and coaxed her patiently, so you asked me to come here because you really want to start with me? Huan bit her lip and didn't dare to look into his eyes. She hugged him shamelessly and rested her burning face on his shoulder. I don't know. It was rare for her to be like this. She was lovable and seductive at the same time. At least, Chin Mo liked it. They had known each other for a long time, and she rarely acted like a spoiled child, let alone taking the initiative to hug him. He purposely whispered in her ear, "Aren't you afraid that I'll eat you up?" The big bad wolf transformed. Huan hugged him tightly for a while. Then, she lowered her head carefully in his arms and covered one of her eyes. She glanced at him and hugged him tightly again. The big bad wolf had transformed. You can't feel it. Chin Mo deliberately teased her. It was very easy for a mature man like him to flirt with a woman, especially a relatively simple woman like Huan. He knew that she had only been filming abroad all these years, and her private life was very simple. Otherwise, he wouldn't have allowed her to stay abroad for so many years. Huan hugged him and didn't dare to move, but after a while, she felt him pressing her against him. That feeling was extremely shameful, more shameful than if he really did anything. Chapter 4287. Chin Mo chuckled. I don't want to drink water. Then he added, coward. Why are you so scared? It's not like we haven't done it before. Although he said that, he loosened his grip a little. Huan immediately jumped away like a cat whose tail had been stepped on and whimpered. Chin Mo smiled happily. Go get the water. I'll look around. Huan looked at him strangely and then jumped away. Chin Mo looked around. The apartment was luxurious but simple. There was nothing extra. It was like a model room. He looked inside and out and did not see anything that belonged to a man, so he was satisfied. When he came out again, Huan had already poured him a glass of water. She was sitting on the sofa with the remote control. She seemed to be watching TV and changing channels. He was sure that her attention was not on the TV. He was amused. Actually, his Huan was quite cute. He sat down and drank half a glass of water. He couldn't help but pull her into his arms and kiss her for a while. Then they watched TV together absent-mindedly. Then, they kissed again, like miserable teenagers. They did things that they did not do when they were in their 20s. They relived the memories of young love. Of course, a mature man would not be satisfied with this. Later, he carried her into the master bedroom, along with the sensual pajamas she had bought. That night, Huan changed into a few sets. President Chin admired her and worked hard. Yes, he was also very satisfied. When everything calmed down, he grabbed little Jiachio in his arms and chuckled against the slightly sweaty skin on the back of her neck. You've learned bad things from Huan. Huan was hugged from behind. She was exhausted, but at this moment, her mind was extremely clear. She asked him in a low voice, "Don't you like it?" He smiled and took a small bite. How can I not like it? I love it so much. He wanted to show how much he liked it again, but Huan turned around and hugged him. I still have to go to see City tomorrow. I have to be early. Chin Mo, stop it. My bones are going to break. He put down his hand that was on her shoulder and kissed her forehead gently. Go to sleep. I'll drive you tomorrow morning. Huan thought that he would drive her to the airport, but not only did he drive her to the airport, but he also sent her all the way to see City and the hotel. She didn't have to worry about anything and just fell asleep. By breakfast time, she was much better. At least, she was not as tired. He had been merciful last night. Huan got out of the car and looked at him. You should eat some too. Huan got out and said, you don't have to send me if you have a meeting. I can do it myself. It would have been better if he hadn't mentioned it. Now that he mentioned it, Huan felt upset. You don't have to send me off if you have a meeting. He took a step forward and said in a voice that no one else could hear, I can't bear to. As he spoke, he stretched out a finger and scratched her little face. I don't want you to work so hard for the film, but I know you like it. Anyway, take care of yourself. I'll come over this weekend, okay? Huan nodded obediently. Huan was not a person who showed her emotions. She didn't love Qin Mo that much in the past. She had been moved for a while, but it soon faded because of Ai Jia. But now, she really cared about him. Huan was not a person who showed her emotions on her face. She had never loved Qin Mo that much in the past. She had fallen for him for a while, but her feelings had quickly faded away because of Ai Jia. Now, however, she had fallen in love with him. Chapter 4288. At this moment, he felt even more reluctant. She had warned him fiercely before, but now she was not like her at all. Huan bit her lips and looked at him weakly. Qin Mo bent down and kissed her on the lips. Stop biting, or it'll bleed. Director don't look at me like that, or else, he chuckled. You won't have any prestige in the crew anymore. She was like a little girl in love. President Qin felt very accomplished. He touched her hair. Also, let your hair grow longer. For me, okay. For some reason, Huan, who had always been a simple person, couldn't help but nod and agree. Then, as if she remembered something, she added, help me wash it. His smile deepened, but he didn't say anything. He just rubbed her hair again. After a long time, he said in a hoarse voice, I'm leaving. He took a step back and looked at her again. Wait a minute. Huan stopped him. He was a little surprised, but he didn't seem surprised at all. He looked at her with a smile. He had liked girls since he was a child. He and his brother, Yi Muyun, were both very affectionate. But they were different. His brother's little Bun was soft and afraid of him since she was a child, while his Huan was a powerful girl who fell in love with someone else. Now, from her eyes, Qin Mo knew that he didn't need to be jealous anymore. His little girl liked him. Just as he was smiling, Huan went forward and hugged him. She put her arms around his waist and buried her little face in his chest. It was such a simple action, but he had longed for it for more than 10 years. Qin Mo's eyes were a little hot. He reached out and touched her hair gently. His voice was hoarse. There are many people. They will laugh at us. I just want to hug you, she said angrily. At this time, Qin Mo saw Rongyu coming out of the hotel elevator. His voice suddenly became hoarse. Rongyu is coming. Are you sure? The person in his arms stiffened and then hugged him even tighter. So, Qin Mo smiled and coaxed her. Okay, I'm going to be late for the meeting. You're the boss. If they're unhappy, fire them all. Huan said unreasonably. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When a woman was too cute and clingy, he couldn't stand it. However, he enjoyed it very much. At this moment, Rongyu seemed to have noticed them. His eyes narrowed and he stared at them. Qin Mo sighed and pulled the little fellow away from his arms. All right, the crew is here. Only then did Huan let go of him, dissatisfied. Qin Mo touched her cheek. After this shoot, take a break for half a year. We'll have another child, he said. He was just saying it. He didn't think that she would want another one, but Juan agreed. He was stunned because she had changed too much. Yesterday, she still looked like she wanted to break up with him, but today, she wanted to have a monkey with him. Chin Mo looked at her suspiciously. Juan's voice was a little low. You go back first. We'll talk about having children later. But we only want to have children in the next 2 years. It seems like we'll get older if we wait any longer. She added, Uncle Chin. Chin Mo snorted. I'm only a few years older than you. However, he was 36 or 37. He was almost 40, which sounded a little old. If he wanted a child, it would be before he was 40. He said it casually. How could he really want a child to destroy his sexual happiness? I'll update tomorrow at noon. Chapter 4289. Juan smiled. I'm a few years younger than you, and men who are too calculative tend to age easily. He glared at her. However, Juan was still smiling. Oh yeah, President Chin, what we said yesterday morning still stands. You're still under probation. Don't think too much about having a child for the time being. You'll age easily. Chin Mo was still glaring at her. No, he really wanted to bite her to death, or at least kill her. At the very least, he wanted to shut her annoying little mouth. However, he didn't do anything. He just looked at her with a doting expression. After Juan finished speaking, she turned around and left. Chin Mo couldn't help it. He caught her back and locked her in his arms. He lowered his head and rubbed her little face. His voice was even hoarser. You little naughty thing. Where did you learn to be so naughty? For some reason, Juan's face turned red. Her voice was also as low as his. I learned it from you. At this moment, Chin Mo couldn't help but think of their entanglement last night. He felt indescribably moved. He looked at her and kissed her lightly for a while before letting go of her. His voice was hoarse. I got it. I'll be leaving first. I'll come over on the weekend. He added, I'll be coming over alone. Juan wanted to say something but gave up. She just smiled lightly. Chin Mo still left. The private flight had been set. He had to leave. Juan continued filming. After that, it was as if they were in love. Everyone in the production crew could feel the change in Juan. She had become softer and gentler, and her filming style had also been affected. There was a hidden warmth in the originally melancholy plot, especially when the female lead was taught well by Juan. Even Kong Chiao was a little amazed. Although the female lead was not a newcomer, she had never been so stunning before. Actually, even in Juan's own works, there wasn't such warmth and tenderness. It wasn't sweetness, it was warmth. It was a kind of gentleness that flowed through time and women. Kong Chiao was stunned. Looking at the replay, she said to Juan in a low voice, It seems like the relationship between you and your husband has been pretty good recently. Juan grunted. Kong Chiao smiled faintly and continued to watch. Juan's voice sounded beside him, You're not bad, are you? Then, Juan muttered to himself, This piece of land will probably make many people famous. As she said that, she patted Kong Chiao, prepared to become famous. Concho's reaction was peculiar. The shooting went unexpectedly well. During the weekend, Chin Mo also came over, and Juan could only accompany him at night. He gave her the cold shoulder. After suppressing himself for a week, he only asked for her twice passionately. After resting, it was already 8 o'clock. He kissed her. Do you want to eat outside or order room service in the hotel? Huan was still very tired. She held her waist and said, "Let's eat here. Wake me up, I want to take a bath." As she spoke, she sat up and exhaled. Then, she looked at him and said, "You're too strong." Chin Mo laughed and pinched her cheeks. Then, he got up and fastened his belt. "Do you want me to carry you?" "No need." How could Huan let him carry her? She ran away. Chin Mo went to order food. Then, while he smoked 2 cigarettes in the living room, the food arrived. He set up the dining room and went to the bathroom to find Huan. Huan had already put on a bathrobe and was applying skin care products in front of the mirror. He smiled and hugged her from behind. "I thought you didn't take care of yourself." Chapter 4290. Huan had already put on her bathrobe and was applying skin care products in front of the mirror. He smiled and hugged her from behind. "I thought you didn't take care of yourself." Huan struggled silently but failed. She patted her face and smiled. "Mr. Chin, a woman will grow old if she doesn't take care of herself." "I thought you wouldn't grow old." His face was in her neck and his voice was hoarse. "You've always been a young and beautiful girl." He wasn't praising or flattering her. In his heart, Huan was a young girl, still the little kid who followed him around when she was young. It really had nothing to do with Huan's achievements. No matter how many awards she won, she was still his girl, a girl who needed him to take care of her. Huan listened to his words and smiled. "When did you learn to say such nice words to a few women?" Chin Mo chuckled. "Am I such a casual man?" He took a few bites and said, "I'll take you out after dinner." "I don't want to go out." Huan looked at him in the mirror. "I'm very tired." He chuckled. "Why don't we stay in the hotel, and do it, huh?" Huan was a little speechless. "Chin Mo, can you have some integrity?" Chin Mo didn't say anything at first. He just held her hand and went to the dining room. He prepared the dishes for her and a bowl of soup for her. Then he said elegantly, "I've been holding back for a long time." Huan almost spat out the soup in her mouth. She glared at him. Chin Mo was still smiling. "For an adult man, we've had sex for less than a year. Don't you think you've treated me badly?" He had married her when he was 30, and they had separated in less than half a year. Later, they had been apart more than ever. They had only had a normal weekend couple in the past month. How could he be satisfied with a few times? He was just considerate of her. Otherwise, he would have kept her in the hotel room day and night. Huan was still drinking the soup, but she just stared at him. After a long time, she said softly, "You can find someone else if you're not satisfied." I didn't stop him. He didn't get angry. He poured himself a glass of apéritif, took a sip, and smiled faintly. "You clearly know." Huan didn't say anything else. She lowered her eyes and quietly ate her dinner. Actually, it was already close to the time for supper. She was really hungry, so she ate quickly and a lot. It was just that she was too busy, so she was still very thin. Chin Mo had used up a lot of energy, but he was still eating slowly. Perhaps it was because he didn't like it or something, he didn't eat much. Huan looked at him, then silently cut a piece of roasted lamb chops and pushed the plate back to him. She didn't say anything, but Chin Mo just stared into her eyes silently. She looked down, unwilling to let him see through her heart. He said, "Huan." She snorted softly. He asked her softly, "In your heart, who is more important, me or Rongyu?" Childish. This was Miss He's answer. Chin Mo's mouth was more gentle. He leaned over and kissed her. Later, he didn't say anything else. He just ate the lamb chops that she cut for him. Later, she was reading the script on the bed, and he was quietly working on his work with his notebook. Chapter 4291. For Chin Mo, this was indeed a great temptation. He glanced at her, and Huan was lying beside him. Her short hair was a little messy, and she looked like a cute little puppy. A little puppy that was fatally attractive to him. He looked at her quietly for 2 seconds, and then threw the notebook aside, lying flat on the bed and closing his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, he reached out and pulled her hair. Let's go out for supper first. We'll talk when we come back. Huan rolled her eyes at him. You're so greedy. Men are all greedy, Miss He. He lowered his head and kissed her little mouth. Please be considerate of a man who hasn't been in a relationship with you officially. Love can be done anytime, but love can't be done at any time. You can't miss the opportunity. As he spoke, he patted her butt. Go change your clothes. Hurry up. He pulled Huan up and pushed her into the changing room. He picked a white t-shirt and jeans for her, and then grabbed a coat. He could go out at any time. Downstairs, in the parking lot, they sat in a very cool sports car. Huan mumbled while fastening the seatbelt, I didn't know you were so pure. Chin Mo was in a very good mood. Before starting the car, he looked at her and smiled meaningfully. There are many things you don't know. For example, I'm not attracted to seductive women. Instead, I like some. As he spoke, his eyes swept over her body and stopped somewhere. In fact, they had been husband and wife for several years. Although they didn't spend much time together, they were very familiar with each other's bodies. But now, the feeling was completely different. Huan felt that she was being teased. She glared at him. Who knows how many indecent things you have behind your back? All my indecent things are with you. Chin Mo had already started the car. Don't you know? She turned her head and ignored him. Chin Mo drove the car to the busiest place in the center of City C. He found a barbecue restaurant that looked good. Huan looked through the car window and unfastened the seatbelt. You've been here before. Chin Mo smiled. If you're in a relationship, the necessary strategies are indispensable. Huan glanced at him. In fact, this supper was to accompany him. Huan had eaten with him a few times and found that he did not have a good appetite. However, when he went crazy at that time, he did not care at all. Huan ordered top-quality Wagyu beef and some vegetables, which he had roasted himself. Chin Mo's cooking skills were pretty good. He saw that Huan didn't eat much and piled all the food on his side. He laughed, you look like. Madam is worried that her husband's body can't take it, so she's trying to make up for it. Nothing good comes out of a dog's mouth. She glared at him and snatched the food from him. Chin Mo shared some with her. Actually, he wasn't too picky about food as long as he could fill his stomach. The thing he was most stubborn about in his life was Huan, but she might not have realized it yet. However, she wanted him to eat more, so he ate more. It could be said that he was trying to make her happy. Later, Huan roasted it herself because she found it fun. The more she roasted, the more Chin Mo's stomach felt bad. However, as a man in love, it was necessary to make his girlfriend happy. In the end, his stomach felt a little uncomfortable, but he endured it. He did not want to spoil her mood. City C was an ancient city. Huan wanted to go for a walk and he wanted to accompany her. As for whether they loved each other and when they would do it, they actually had a lifetime, so what did it matter? You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.